Hi everyone, today we focused on a new strategy called the partial quotient strategy. Again, just like the area model, this strategy is great for our students who are still mastering those multiplication facts because they can get to their answer in a variety of different ways. So I'm going to show you two problems of using this strategy so that you can help your child at home to solve these, or if you're one of my students watching this, you can look back and remember how to solve this. So we set our problems up just a little bit differently for these ones. For this, we're going to draw what looks a little bit more like the traditional method where we have our 87 and then our bar. I do ask that my students extend their bar down like this so that it helps them keep their numbers separated, and you'll see why in just a second. Our divisor is what's going to go on the outside, and then your problem's ready to go. The next thing that you need to do is list out your fast facts, what we like to call our facts of 5. So everything that our students can think of about the number 5. So we're going to start with 5 times 1 times 2 times 3 times 4 and times 5. At this point, I usually tell students they can kind of stop there and then double back and add on some zeros here, but it's up to them if they want to add 6, 7, 8, and 9. And some of them do, and that's totally fine. The next part that I tell them is to go back and think a little bit bigger. So we have 5 times 1. Well, our students know that if we were to add a 0 onto our 1, we would add a 0 to our answer. So if we were to do that, we would have 5 times 10, which they know is 50. They know that they can do the same thing with 5 times 2 or 5 times 20, which gives us 100. Now, our dividend here is 87. So any number that's going to be bigger, we're not going to use. So at this point, I would tell them that they could stop because they're not going to use anything that's bigger than our dividend there. So we're going to go back and we're going to use our facts that we have so far. They're welcome to use other facts that they don't know. This is just, or that they didn't write down. This is just a starting point. So I'm going to look at my list here and I'm going to think, what is going to get me closest to 87 without going over it? So in this case, looking at my list, the answer that's going to get me closest here is 50. So I'm going to use this fact of 5 times 10, which equals 50. So I'm going to come over to my problem, and I said that my answer was 50. I'm going to put that inside of my box. And then outside of my box, I need to put what I multiplied by. In this case, I multiplied times 10. So I'm going to put that outside of there. From here, all you need to do is subtract. So inside of our box, we're going to subtract. And we're left with 37. Now I have a little bit of a smaller number to work with, but I'm going to repeat my steps. So I'm going to come back to my list and I'm going to ask myself which one of my answers here is going to get me closest to 37 without going over. In this case, I see that I have 25. So I'm going to use that fact. And to get 25, I did 5 times 5. So I'm going to put my 5 on the outside and then I'm going to subtract again. Here I'm left with 12. Now I'm going to see what can get me closest to 12. I have here 5 times 2 gives me 10. So I'm going to use that one, and I'm going to put my 10 on the inside, my 2 on the outside, and then I'm going to subtract. 12 minus 10 gives me 2. At this point, I can stop because 2 is less than 5. So I cannot make another equal group of 5. 2 is going to become my remainder, and I'm going to circle it to make sure I don't forget about it. To get the rest of my quotient, I'm going to add down my numbers that I have here. So I have 10 plus 5 plus 2, and I know that that gives me 17. So my final complete answer that I would give for 87 divided by 5 would be an answer of 17 with a remainder of 2. Okay? So I'm going to do one more problem with you to help you understand that strategy. And this time I'm going to use a little bit of a bigger number. I'm going to use a 3-digit number. So this time I'm going to use the number 180. and 93, and we're going to divide that by 8. So 193, and we're going to divide it by 8. Again, we're going to set it up here with our bar. Oops. 193, and we're going to divide that by 8. Okay, our first step before we can divide is to list out our fast facts for the number 8. So we have times 1 is 8, times 2 is 16, times 3 is 24, times 4 is 32, times 5 is 40, and then I'm going to double back and look at my facts here. So then I'm going to do times 10, which gives me 80, times 20, which gives me 160, and times 30, which is going to give me 240. I'm going to stop now because just like I said last time, once you get above here, you're not going to use it. So I'm going to stop here at 240. So I'm going to look at my list and I'm going to say which one of my answers is going to get me closest to 193 without going over. So in this case, we're going to use 160 because that gets me closest. So I'm going to put 160 inside of my box, my answer, and I put what I multiplied by on the outside of my box. So my 20 is going to go outside over here. From there, I can subtract. So once I subtract these, I'm left with 33, a much friendlier number to work with. Now I have to find out what's going to get me close to 33 without going over. This is the cool part about this strategy. I'm going to pretend like I didn't know 8 times 4 was 32. Say you only know 8 times 3 was 24. I could use that fact. So I'm going to put my 24 on the inside and my 3 on the outside. And I'm going to subtract again. So I have to borrow here. Okay, but I end up with 9. I can go one more time because 9 is still bigger than 8. 8 goes into 9 one time, my fact right here. When I subtract, I'm left with 1. Had I used 8 times 4 was 32, I would have had 4 over here instead of a 3 and a 1. In this part, I just broke it up into more steps. So it took me more time, but I used the facts that I was comfortable with. So my 1 is smaller than my 8, so it's left over, and that's our remainder. And then I just need to add for my quotient over here. So I'm going to add 20 plus 3 plus 1, which is going to give me 24. And then I have my remainder down here. So in order to get my final answer, I need to write these together. So my final answer here would be 24 with a remainder of 1.